The film is fundamentally concerned with the question of whether we have any control over our lives, fate versus free will. Godfrey is a godlike character who decides to pick on this guy. The whole film is set over 2 days, a motivational sales conference in a country house hotel. So there's a lot of comment about corporate culture as well, and win at all costs, does the end justify the means? All of those things are in there. But basically the God character takes this guy who turns up, who's on the conference, who is a fire and intruder alarm salesman and his name is Vic Timms. Okay, now the whole film is quite heightened in that respect. Godfrey decides to pair him up with a real estate agent, and her name's Mary Magdalene, Mary Magdalene, who was the whore in the Bible. So it's all, in some ways, again, it sounds quite comedic. It's actually not treated very comedically in terms of overt slapstick. It's very dry. The whole thing is quite black. But it's basically what happens over the course of 2 days with Godfrey trying to get these two together, and all the other characters get in the way or contribute, and that's basically the story. The inspiration behind the film was I'd seen a few verse plays which I'd found quite inscrutable and hadn't really understood, and I'd always enjoyed writing in verse. As a songwriter, you write in verse, and as a songwriter you become quite adept at telling a story very succinctly. And I just felt, I don't know, one day I just kind of thought it would be great to have a verse film that was actually modern vernacular and that anybody could understand, because it's a writing in rhyming couplets specifically. It doesn't lend itself generally. It can be quite trite, and it doesn't always lend itself to scenes that are emotionally layered. And I just thought it must be possible. It was a challenge. It's like a lot of creative endeavours come out of a kind of a dumb challenge, I suppose. It's interesting that you should say casting him as an older white man, because I did think all around the houses as to where you could go with God. I mean, Morgan Freeman's played God. Peter Cook has played God. We looked at different women that could play God. I mean, I decided in the end, because of the verse, that narrowed who could do it. In all the casting process, the verse actually narrowed who could carry it off, because there were some people that could carry the verse and keep it alive, and there were other people that would tend to deaden the verse. We knew that we needed somebody with a certain stature, because I think when you're making an independent film, when you're making any film, you need to think about an audience. So we needed to find a God character that would potentially bring us an audience. And actually that starts to narrow it down quite a lot. You then have budgetary constraints and availability issues, and that narrows it down a great deal. So Simon was offered the script, read it, loved it, and there was no decision to make, really. 100% positive. It's been, I think, Raindance seems to have a huge amount of goodwill attached to it, not least because of Elliot's energy. I think is extraordinary when you first meet him and you're in his presence. I was invited to the British Independent Film Awards last year just as a guest, and I saw this guy on the stage, and I was just like, it's just like watching the Duracell bunny or something. He's extraordinary. And then when you meet him, he's just, he has such a passion for what he's doing. And when you're invited to be part of that, I think it's a great feeling. It's a great validation of your film and the work that you've done. And my experience of Raindance the Festival, our film played on a Friday night at 9:15 at night in the West End with 200 people watching it who'd all paid £10, and that was a if nothing else happened to this film, that was actually a brilliant feeling. It really was. I've got an album coming out on the 7th of November, which is called A False Parade, and you can hear the album, hear excerpts from the album at johnnydaukes.com, which you could put up on the screen. And yeah, I'll be touring, I'll be playing live in November, and then I'm going to be touring in January. And then you can watch out for Acts of Godfrey, which has been picked up distribution, is going to be in cinemas in January and February.